Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Plus Three Futures and Commodities Show. We are recording here Saturday morning, August 15th. My name is Ben Maldonado. As always, I'm here with my partner, Barry Hederachi. Hey, Barry, how's life in Costa Rica?
Life is good. Life is good. Rainy season just got started, feels like. So it's good.
Excellent, excellent. So, first, we want to thank, like we do every week, we want to thank you all for subscribing, for liking the video, for the comments, the hypes, and sharing the links with your friends. It's through those efforts that you all put in that we are able to grow the channel, and we appreciate that. So, please continue to do that. The next thing we do is we like to recap. Some of the calls from the previous show, the scoreboard as we call it, and see how we did, hold ourselves accountable. We talked about the indices, the ES, the S&P 500, and the NQs pushing into resistance where the resistance levels are, and they pushed right into that during the week, so that was good. Bonds, Barry's been all over bonds, and they continue to be weak as expected. Crude held support at 81, so as long as that continues to hold, we're looking higher there. The metals followed through to the upside. Barry and I both highlighted silver and gold last week. And of course, the grains with the crop report looks like we kicked into the next leg higher there, and we'll review those today. For the theme, Barry, you and I were talking earlier, and I think this is a good theme that kind of summarizes where we are,
hmm
especially in the indices. The bulls are rattling important squares right now
Like
and
here.
threat yeah,
Right.
and threatening to break out of their pen. And if
That's right.
we look at the square as a pen, a bullpen,
hmm
they're banging on the gate and trying to get out. Uh,
Absolutely.
and that leads me to a limerick I've got for you. I'll give it to you and then we'll jump into the charts.
Let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Sure. The bulls are rattling the pen. They've tested the ceiling again. The CPI yawned, but a breakout has dawned unless bears shove them back in the pen.
That's it. Saves a lot of talking.
I mean, that summarizes the show, right? We can wrap it
I
up.
think,
Good luck. We'll see you next week.
I think so. I think so. For everyone that wanted to know what we think right off the bat, there it is in the
I mean,
limerick.
this S&P chart is a perfect visual. I mean, look at that. It's a perfect visual of them, banging on the gate of the pen, trying
hmm
to break out.
Yep. Yep.
So let's see. Let's talk about. Let's dive in and give us the levels and let's see what the evidence points to.
So bulls are banging at the gates. This line is a full cycle up from last year's April lows, and we have price and time, and everything sort of came together. At the same time, we did have a cycle high last week. Seems to have come in, at the time. Now, before I get into that, I just want to kind of frame where we think we are because going into new highs is something we have to take a closer look at. And one thing to remember is, and I mentioned this to you, Ben, this morning when we were talking, right? When the May high, the end of May, June high came in,
Hmm.
that was a big cycle high, and normally, you'd expect some kind of a correction, and for some reason, my brain always thinks correction as in price, like
Price, right?
we get a 50% correction, 30%, 20%.
Hmm.
People do
Hmm.
too, right? 10%
Hmm.
correction, 5% correction.
Yeah, sure.
But we never think it in time in terms of time. So sometimes you can get a correction, let's say instead of 45 degrees down, you can get 45 degrees in time,
Hmm.
which is kind of what happened with this last high. And
Absolutely.
and it happens, right? And I think I mentioned it last time or the time before, because people aren't familiar with the concept. It's a little bit harder to sort of grasp it, right? Oh, why are
And
we? But
as
anyway,
you know, Barry, we see a lot of that in commodities too. I mean, gold's been doing that on the way up. Remember how it would just correct in time?
absolutely. And in gold's case, it was always very bullish
Yep.
till we got to the final. So here, it's pretty much the case. I feel like we corrected that in time, and just then we had a cycle come up last week, And so that leaves a couple of different options. I mean, this is not for day-to-day trading. For all of that, you guys can follow us on X and Substack. We post the daily stuff we do. We're very short-term traders, so it's all there. But it's good to kind of map out the macro view and see where things might be headed. So getting back to like take a snapshot of the bigger picture really quick. So I feel like we ran out that time. That cycle ran out in 45 days, and that got us, to the end of that time, right? And as soon as we
Hmm.
hit the wall, we kind of moved, and that could have been the high, that because we came right up on price, and we had time coming up. We had these 45, 60 cycles we've been running. Fair enough. We should keep tracking that. Here's a 45, there's a 45, here's another 45, 90 degrees here, and here's something interesting. I bet you none of you guys saw this one. I'm not sure if it matters till after after we see some evidence, but here's a 49 coming from this sort of little consolidation correction
Hmm.
going into the high, and we're coming up on that 49, a similar 49 here going into a high, and it definitely doesn't mean after that 49 we get that, right? But it's coming up, right? And it's a familiar kind of a pattern. Now the 45s ran out just fine, but we also have 135 degrees solar degrees coming off the April low,
Hmm.
and it turns out to be roughly 144. But anyway, it all kind of lines up, 18th, 19th. Let's say the 19th plus or minus 1 day next week, right?
Hmm.
And this 49 and stuff lines up around the 16th, 17th, Monday, Tuesday. Then you got Wednesday, Thursday. You can't say like, oh, the whole week is some kind of a cycle turn.
And don't we have VIX expiration next
Yeah,
week?
we have VIX expiration, which is a big pin at the
Hmm.
moment, right? So we have a lot of things, and we have some counts. So when these things line up, you want to watch. Yes, it all looks bullish, and I think that's the majority view probably, and not to be necessarily contrarian, and we're not as a rule. But let's take a clear-eyed view at where the hell we are, right? Okay, so from the April lows, we're up 180 degrees exactly to the square, and this square is kind of what we live and die by. This is our sword. So,
Hmm.
and as far as looking at the cash chart and putting it all together, we have price and time coming in last Thursday. It came in perfectly, and I'm sitting here watching. Well, all these cycles that expired. So this one ran itself out. We did the 45. Trading days in time. Okay, fine, that's done. And then I'm looking at, well, let's just see, where do we go if we take out that, look at it from that low. Of course, this can be done. I mean, it's a method, and you can see where it actually worked out just earlier this year. So it's not like something foreign. Well, that turns out to be next week, 16, 17. Let's say, okay, give her plus or minus 1 day. High to high, we ran out the 45. 6, 7, 8, 9 comes in the middle, so that's out. We can't really use that. But then you have 55 up here, which is kind of new. And I don't, high to high is not a big deal for me. I don't, that's really not the big cycle. If it's there, great. If it has some relationship to some of the other cycles, okay, fine, but it's not something I would put a whole lot of weight on. But if it's along with some other things, okay, fine. We can take a look at that. Okay, so that's sort of all the pieces I'm looking at. I'm looking at the counts from the low, which is a big low here. We're looking at the bigger count, which is the dash line, which is coming off of the tariff lows. And we have price in terms of the 78.18 level, which is a major, it's a major level. What do we do with all that? Are we breaking out? Well, not yet. I think if we can, I have 78.18 here, but let's just say 78.08, '08 to 18. If we can settle above this line visually, great. And you guys, I'll show you guys a weekly chart a little bit later where we did settle above very cleanly. So there are a couple of things. It's sort of a crossover point, and it always is when we get to one of these lines, as it was, back in April when we finally got above and stayed above. Up until that point, we were bearish because, hey, we had a cycle high to be running out. Well, we ran it out at that 45. Then the other possibility is if it's a bigger downturn, then we should have a lower high, which we didn't get. And from there, it was all bullish again. Then we had to spend a little bit of time at the 50%, so forth and so on. So here, that's the case next week. If we can get above, if you want the short and sweet of it, if we can settle above 78.18, okay, fine. I think we open up our way to 8,000 and higher. Let me be the first to sort of put it out on the board. If we can
Hmm.
clear 70 to 18 and we clear 8,000 and some change at the quarter level, we're open all the way to 81.68. How about them apples there, Ben?
You got to be aware of what can happen, right?
Yeah, well, it can only go up if we settle above that.
That's right.
And if we don't settle above it, then we have, back to the, what the hell is going on with the cycles scenario, right? Are we going to correct again sideways? Are we going to correct back down to this 75.82, 75.20, 76.25 level?
Hmm.
So we have plenty of room to correct if we are not ready to go higher. And if we are ready to go higher, then 78.18 is sort of the line. And now, last time when the cycles came in, I'm like, well, that's close enough for our business, right? It's close enough. And sure enough, we spend a little time, acting like, sure, it's a little pennant, little flag and all of that, bull flag possibly. But now this time we ran right into and I think bulls against the pen is like the perfect analogy, right? We pushed up
Hmm.
against a square and then, day of rest, Friday.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. So, which sets up the next week really in a interesting way because, we ended Friday with the inside bar. So clearly, if we come hot and heavy, take out Friday's high, it looks like we're going to go right
Hmm.
back in business. So there's usually three ways we finish that. Either we have an outside bar and we resolve along those lines, or we take out one side and everybody runs with that. So I think watch out for that inside bar. And the upper side of the high of the bar, Friday bar, is right up against our square line. So I think the lines are pretty easy to see. There's nothing to guess here. 78.08 to 78.18 is sort of the zone here at the line, and break to the upside we go. If we're stuck below, well, we might get more of this till the VIX pin gets released. So, then who knows, right? It's like a balloon up in the air. We can kind of, when you blow a balloon and let go, right? It can go any which way. I think all bets are off at that point, especially if we're sitting on the line, right? We have to resolve this. If it's anywhere, otherwise, at least you have a direction to sort of look at. And with these cycles, these aren't huge cycles, but this 135 is something you want to watch because that's a big deal coming off of that low because it was a serious low. Yeah, that's kind of what I have. And we also managed to get out of we had an eclipse up in here too. So
Hmm.
for things. Yeah, so that's what I have. Do you have
And
anything
we had a
else?
lightning cycle as well.
And we had a lightning cycle. So there are some things. So I'm sure if you guys are new, you probably go, well, so what? All of this stuff. What do I do next week? Well, I would go back to price and say, if we're above the 78.18 level
It's
and we
bullish.
start, making
Hmm.
higher highs and higher lows where we're heading to 8,000, if we clear that at some point, then we're heading up to, 8,100, 8,200 level. Well, great. That's fine. Otherwise, we want to really be watching this and we want to watch this, especially for if we start making lower lows and lower highs, right? That could be
Hmm.
signaling a lot more than just a quick snap. But given the picture, bulls are definitely pushing up against the pen here. So
Hmm.
watch, see what the bears can do. Can't say the bears didn't have enough time to rest here, so we'll see.
Yep.
Either that or the big battle was here, right? And the bears
Yeah.
lost. So
That's a possibility for sure.
yep, yep. And we'll get into the Nasdaq. You're gonna be covering the Nasdaq
Yes.
weekly and the monthly, so which is a big deal to watch. Look at those, and you're gonna be covering the grains. Let me get through the indices. We'll do the weeklies and the 30-minute, and get on with the rest of it. So,
Sure.
but there's some interesting things. If you guys are students of the market, there's some cool things here. If you just want to get the number and trade, well, that was it. I think you got everything under what's that, 5 or 10 minutes. So
Right.
I'm trying to package it up as much as I can. All right. So moving on to the futures contract. So look, here's another case of pushing up against a square. We're not exactly on it like like the cash was doing, but this is pretty damn close. It's
Hmm.
well, closer than we were at the last cycle, which was a clear. And you guys can see, we had price on time there. Only other thing I can make of this, just now remember, this is the front month. I'm going, this is not a continuation chart, but it's an important one to watch, as you guys will see, or you have seen over time over the years. Sometimes the clue comes in the front month and not necessarily in the cash or the continuation chart. So anyway, that being said, so 78.50, we didn't, we're not quite there. And the inside bar, with all these other cycles coming, we have a shot at this being a false break. Okay. Now, Friday's price action wasn't exactly telling of some kind of a false break, but let's see. Let's see what happens Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, right? So we're below 78.50. I think we're still susceptible to one of these other cycles that we talked about, other counts getting traction and pulling this thing down. Otherwise, if we can clear 78.50, we start making higher highs. Well, obviously, we're going to clear the 180. We clear 78.50. That opens up the front month up to above 8,000. So 8,030, around that level, which would be nice. It'd be nice to have some sort of a trend that we can handle.
Hmm.
Maybe a little calmer than this, because this was like a street fight, trying to get in there and trade. But
Yeah.
it'll be a little bit nicer to trade normal size bars in the morning. All right, so that's my take. 78.50 is a key level to watch for the front month. Well, one other thing I wanted to say before I jump off of this is just to notice. I mean, it's easy to get used to the sort of steep angles that we're moving, right?
That's a
But
two by one, right?
no, this is a 4 by 1
Oof.
that I just drew in.
Right.
So remember, market's not going to be able to go on a 4 by 1 forever, right?
No.
And normally, termination point comes pretty quickly at one of the cycles. Maybe we have another week or two left in this. Well, that would be great.
Hmm.
Otherwise, watch this trend line. We're not quite tapping it yet, but it's one. Once you cross it, we might get a correction down to the next line, right above these levels. Depending how
Yep.
fast we do that. That's if we don't get above 78.50. So, all right, let's move on to where we're moving to. Well, hey, this is the we
That
looked
was
at
that.
this last week,
Yeah, that was that beautiful parallel chart with the
right? We were
45s.
and I think I dropped this box and said, we need to kind of settle above that. And sure enough, Thursday, Friday, we kind of settled above it. All
Yeah.
right. So,
Yep.
and we were talking about the 777 line and whatnot. So if you guys want like an early clue towards, okay, are we making a high or low? Are these cycle things working, or what are these guys talking about? The secondary level to watch on the cash chart on the SPX would be uh, 77. Yeah, just so it's easy for you guys to remember, watch 77.70. Okay.
Hmm.
Now, if we, with the pullbacks and whatever we do during the day, if we manage to hold above 77.70, I would say we definitely cleared that part of the. This is a different pen, by the way, different set of bulls coming off to this low. So,
Hmm. Hmm.
unlike the other one, so here we crossed it. So this is what I mean. It's kind of like, it's like that slack tide kind of a period. So
Sure.
I think the cure is, if you really want it, I mean, what we want is actionable stuff, right? So the cure here is for the cash, if we can hold above 77.70 on pullbacks, I would say it's definitely on a bullish footing rather than bearish, right? Now, if we get
Hmm.
under 77.70 and can't quite recover to get back on top of it, and or especially the 77.77 number, then I think something's buckling up. So watch
Hmm.
these two numbers for next week. I'm going to make a little line so you guys we cover it next week. Yeah, I think this is the big piece of the puzzle for next week. So go and make it happen. And where is this chart coming from? 22,
October 22.
October 22.
Hmm.
Well, take a look at this, you guys. So this is a square 144 coming off the October 22 or 1,008 days out this month. And the date is August 19th,
Wow.
right?
Hmm.
So why should we pay attention to that? Well, because we paid attention to this one. And you can see what happened on that timing. We had that decent correction there, right? So not all of them have to hit, but this one definitely worked out. And this one, I
That
would
worked
say
out.
it worked out because it never got above the high, right? We had other
Uh,
things
Yeah, and
showing
you
up.
had changing character, right? You
Yep.
were you
Oh,
were
absolutely.
rising into it and then went sideways.
Well, I would even say it actually hit it, right? And then we
Hmm.
had sort of a
Hmm.
what do we have in contract change, and that pumped up the numbers here a little bit. So
True. That's true.
overall, yeah, it so all that to say, this next week it adds a little bit more weight. Uh,
Hmm.
let's see what happens. Now, the other flip side of all these cycles coming in, timing, and like these things are been on the chart, right? I'm not adding these as I go. The thing is, if they don't get traction, then the traction is definitely to the upside.
No
So
doubt.
that's the good news,
Hmm.
right? There's no bad news here. It's good news, good news.
Hmm.
If it doesn't work, well, we jump on board the other direction.
That's right.
Now I talked about this is a calendar day for the continuation chart. I talked about how on some of the charts we've jumped the pen, and this is one of them. You know, we got above it last week, and we kind of stayed above, right? And so let's see. For me, this is right about at the eighth. So I'm not buying this yet. Um, it's another rule that I have for the square. So I'm going to let it be and let the other charts sort of do the heavy work, heavy lifting, and we'll come back and check this out later if the other ones turn. If they don't, we at least have a some kind of a clue. All right, looking at the Dow futures, 54,100 was the well, that was a 50% level. It was support resistance, sort of a pivot for the square. And once that other cycle came in, we hit it. We just never really turned back. We didn't go back to make highs. We didn't do anything fancy here, and like a really obedient sort of a market, respecting the cycle, right? Stayed below the line. Everything's kind of cool. And so this is another thing. But, we're not all ready to break the pen and run. Here we're kind of resting, coming back into it. So watch the Dow next week. If the other cycles are getting traction to the upside, Dow, I would hope, would be trading above 54,100. Otherwise, that softness, the overall softness is going to be there in the sense of far as you can define it through the Dow. What do you think, Ben?
That's a key spot. And getting
Right?
stuck under it is interesting since the Dow has been leading, right?
Yeah, and it's another, sort of a marker to watch.
Hmm. Hmm.
Sometimes everybody's on board, all the indices are going in one direction. Sometimes, around the corners, you get a little wobbly, and you got to watch the ones that are doing something different and see why. So
Hmm.
here, why is it doing well? Ever since the other cycle came in, it's kind of following it because different cycles get traction in different ways in different markets, right? So here, it looks like it got it because obviously we didn't make new highs like some of the other markets. All right,
Hmm.
last one in this batch would be the Nasdaq. Well, when this cycle was initially coming in, my whole thing was, well, if the market's really weak, we ought to stop in here and then drop.
Hmm.
Then I was like, well, if we get through that, then this should be the zone. Next zone is where we made a little air against this 30,200. That ought to be the level. And sure enough, the last cycle we came up and kind of corrected the top of the box that we drew in before the price was there. So anyway, all in all, we came back, held above 29,461, looking pretty steady. And then last we pushed higher into this 30,200 number. Oh, I know. I remember. I added that as a quarter level, right? So which is what
Hmm.
it is. So I think next week it's fairly simple. If we settle above 30,200, well, then we have to get back to 31,000 and
Yep.
everybody's back on
All-time
track.
highs. Yep.
Yeah. And once NASDAQ takes out 31,000, now we know we're, all drunk. Cool.
Full speed ahead.
Right, the punch bowl's got to be filled and refilled again.
Damn the torpedoes. Full speed ahead.
So till we get there, I mean, I would, run away is great. So, let it run. At this point, that's what it would be, and let it be that.
And we'll
But
just trade the living hell out of the long side.
absolutely. So in the meantime, watch 30,200 for next week, if we settle above it or not, and the price action around that to see if some of these other cycles are kicking in. And,
Hmm.
and so this is the only way we know how to validate that. All right, so that's that. Let's
I'll
jump
give us
in.
some more depth on that one too.
Yeah, looking at the monthly, weekly. Great, great.
Hmm.
All right, when I talked about some of the bulls, some of the old bulls, the weekly,
Hmm.
trying to jump they cleared the first bar, right? 7730.
Yep.
We got on top of it and we held very cleanly. To me, this is a solid sort of the warning shot to go, hey, we have to pause here and trade accordingly, trade with the market. But keep an eye on the 7730 basis, the weekly. Obviously, if last week's low goes out, this is a decent size high in place. And to end applying my 1/8 rule, we're pretty much right there. So I think
Hmm.
in really strong bull markets, you can go past about eighth into the next square, and that's what we're doing here. And knowing that, I'm sitting here grinning, watching the bulls, going, okay, let's see, how we play this out. The playout is easy. As long as we're holding above 7730, we're not, you know, jumping in bear wagon, right? You have to kind of
Hmm.
stay with the trend there. And with this kind of a consolidation in place, that I mean, obviously that becomes that or halfway into that becomes solid support for anything big. So for now, that's what we have. One other thing of interest, we have some of those cycles coming in. Okay, great, fine. So on the weekly, it looks like from that low, the bears jumped the gun a little bit. But like I said, I have a rule there that's holding me in place. But if we take that same square and we put it on the
Look at
low
that.
this year, well, we did a clean 90, man, right into it. So
Hmm.
we kind of have to clear that, I would say, only because it's so fresh, right? This is the nearest low that we're running off into. And we're almost up and where we got about 18 weeks. We're running into about 22 weeks pretty soon. So 7,800 is the level we really need to sort of get on top of basis the weekly. Okay. Let me just drop a line so we remember what that is.
That's a nice tight bracket for a weekly. Usually they're super wide. Here you got basically 70 points.
What do you mean super wide? Like,
Usually if you have when you have the high and low on a weekly that you're bracketing, you're dealing with hundreds of, 100 or 200 or 300 points. Here it's tight. I mean, it's 7730 is support, 7800 you got to clear. It's very,
yeah,
very tight.
yeah. And you can see how tight that is. It's right in there, what we have to watch. And this is for long term, like you guys, you're not going to need this next week to trade, but for people that are following this stuff and students of the market. So let's watch this and let's see what happens. But that's why I'm being a little bit, pausing a little bit, saying, you know what, we have to really let price do the work here, and just know, which is always the case, right? Price is always doing the work, but we keep an eye on time just because there are so many damn cycles.
Hmm.
Now, this weekly chart coming off the 2020 low is telling us that, hey, the cash could get up to 8,000,
Hmm.
you know. Sure, we can have a couple of bars here and there, but we cleared the 50%. So whatever corrections we have, we're still going to go for the final run here. I don't think we're quite done. Anyway, so that's something. Now let's take a look at the Russell.
Nice comeback.
Yeah, which was, last week we're like, oh, look, Russell's making a lower high. It's right on the 3041 level. And this week we pushed higher. So we got above 3041 with a fairly good margin. And the weekly bar is straddling a key square. So I'd say watch 3041, If we
Hmm.
can hold above that, fine, let it go up and find the next level. And if we get below that, then we know what to watch for. Yeah, so mm, yeah, that's all I got.
Good.
Let's look at the
It's
30 minute.
enough.
That's yeah, it's quite a bit. Let's look at the 30 minute really quick. If that's possible. I
The
mean,
money printer chart.
the money printer, yeah, exactly. And it was a pretty tight week. Just a quick thing, this 77.94 level, I picked this up from this little pivot, the fact that we broke it very quickly back on the fourth, fifth, somewhere in there. And I
Hmm.
and I added this line saying, hey, this can end up a pivot line. And sure enough, it ended up becoming a very important line. And so last couple of days, we were able to stay right on top of it. Before that, we were testing like, okay, my thinking was if the trend line broke and that held, of course, we're going to roll over. But if the trend line held, we got on top of it, well, we're going to test 78.34, which we did.
Which we did.
And that
Yep.
was the, Thursday, Friday thing we were watching. And Friday, we kind of rested and got back onto the line. So going into next week, it's super easy, you guys. Either we clear 78.34 and we run and look at this, even on the 30-minute, the next big
8,000.
square is 8,000. So, you know, so that's there. And if we can't do that, then obviously we're going to screw around here and test lower, and you guys have the levels here. So I don't think it's that tricky to
Mm-mm.
play if you watch those two levels. If you guys don't want to follow all this during the week, follow us on X. We post there and also Substack.
Hmm.
Let me see what else I have to share. We talked about the NASDAQ. Yeah, that's all I have. All right, let's move on to bonds. I don't know about you, Ben. I've heard that all of a sudden now everybody's bearish,
Interesting.
right?
Hmm.
So bonds, not a whole lot to add. I think we're weak. Our target support is 108. And if we get through that, we have a little bit more to go. For now, the key level to watch is 110.24. We're a week below that. We'd support at 108. And if we take that out much lower, if we hold it, probably more sideways or a retest of the 110.24 level. And let's take a quick look at the weekly. Weekly
Weak.
is weak and it's just keep sliding lower.
Hmm.
So we had a sort of an inside bar. We had took out the low last week. And so 107 looks like the next level, 108 on the other chart. You can see how things are lining up. Good luck
Hmm.
to all. Let's take a look at crude.
Held that
Crude,
support.
it's holding, it's gravitating, in the right area, right? That's our band. We've had it. If you guys been watching. So 81's in the middle, and we're holding slightly above it, kind of bouncing around it. What didn't happen was we didn't get under 79.50, right?
Hmm.
And bounce around 73.50. We're up here bouncing. So like I said earlier, as long as we're above 81, 79, this band here, we can easily run up and touch 91. So that's the thing we're
Looks
working.
like it's winding up for something, doesn't it?
Yeah, I can't help but think it's higher because look, we broke out, came back, perfect retest, ran up higher low.
Hmm.
So unless we come up and take this out before taking out this high or that high, you know what I mean? It
Hmm.
looks like it's fairly clean shot. We just have to be patient and watch the price action. And this 81 level is kind of saves a lot of energy because you don't have to think so much, right? If
Yep.
if we get if you're above that, we can expect to trade long side. If we're below that, we hold back, or if you guys are really brave, you can trade the short side.
Hmm.
But yeah, so that looks, it's funny, the $100 mark comes the target if it all moves that way.
Mm-hmm.
And let me look at the weekly. And weekly would make a lot more sense. You can see how 78.80 is the square level, and we're holding above 78 for the weekly. And you can see the low last week was right on 78.
Mm-hmm.
This is the thing. Long as the weekly is above 78, I would say the push is to the upside. If we get under that, fine, we can deal with it then. So crude has a bullish stance above those levels. I think that's been guiding us pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
Gold, remember that half square support level? I thought we might get a little bit of a washout before moving. We didn't, we got this low here and that low, which was a higher low, which was perfect, higher low. And then we had the third. So there was a 1, 2, 3, and I guess we're going through the fourth now,
Mm-hmm.
burning that out. But the beautiful thing is, look where it broke out, right? Exactly. 41.90 broke out, ran up right up into 45, 40 level area. And now we're correcting right down to the next important level. Let me just update that. So 43.86, I think long as we're above that, we're super bullish. But I think we got plenty of time and space to correct even a little bit lower. I mean, a proper retest would bring us back to 41.90, 42,000, and it'll be
Mm-hmm.
fine. So given metals are metals, that can happen. But we got the break, so the low looks good. Pullbacks coming into that area is still going to be treated as bullish. Looks good. We killed enough time here. So about 45 degrees, down here.
Absolutely.
All right. So yeah, let me do all the metals at one shot. Then we'll take a look at the weeklies. Silver ran up right into the next resistance level, which was $67 up there. We sort of held above 62.50. That ran us up to 67. Now we're sort of holding pen here. So above 62.50, silver's in pretty good shape, given that we're calling this low to have come in. 62.50, as long as we're holding this on pullbacks, we're okay to go higher. Above 67, I think silver's, 72 is the next target, which is
Mm-hmm.
also resistance. Taking a look at copper.
Kind of quiet week for copper.
Kind of quiet week, but the if you notice the pullback wasn't that steep, right?
No. So it
We
looks like a
held it.
little baby
Mhm.
ABCD.
Right. And I thought we'd go a little bit deeper given that we hit the target,
Mm-hmm.
and on the weekly, you guys will see how steep that is. But if that's all we get, even a couple of more days, fine, if we start moving above. But the next real shot is really to get about the 682. About that will
Mm-hmm.
be stronger. Otherwise, 635 is our old support and still support. And yeah, I think we'll leave it at that. Let me take a look at the weeklies. Here's the gold.
That's encouraging for the bulls, right? Getting above that full square.
Very much. So 43.91, we basically cleared it and spent, 90% of the time, 90% of the bar is above that. So
Mm-hmm.
very good shape. Like we saw in the daily, even if we break down to 41.74, I think the case is made for the low.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty good. Yeah, that's all. That's not much to add. 43.91 is the level to watch. Let's take a look at silver. You saw a 67 get hit. Basis the weekly. What we need to do is get above 66. And if we can get above that, I think that opens up the entire next leg, not just up to 72, 75, but it'll,
Mm-hmm.
all the way up to 81. So it looks like we're off the mark. Watch 61.50 basis the weekly for support. We have room to run. Here's a great weekly chart. We ran up right up into 690 and that triple three drives, right? We had the three
Mm-hmm.
drives into a high. Okay. The thing to watch is as long as we can hold the weekly corrections about 650, I think it's revved up, I should say, and ready to go. So let's watch that closely. Nothing bearish about this unless we get under 650 and can't recover.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Looking at the dollar, dollar's not exactly acting bullish. I got to hand it to you. Like we
Mm-hmm.
ran up in a big old hurry. And I thought we'd clear this 101. That was our next marker, right? Here's the key line. 101 was really important. We got above it a little bit, then 1050, 150 held, and we tried again and failed. Okay, fine, let it, rest. Then we took out 1050 and dropped quickly to 99.50. This is, mm, there's no momentum now, right? We broke the momentum. We should have this was the last draw was here and then go up. Otherwise, we'd consolidate, burn up a little bit more time and then go. But now we're sitting a little bit too long at 99.50. And as bullish as I am, three hits like that, boy, if this low goes, we're going to go lower. So patterns are patterns, right? So what's that been?
I was going to say a weak dollar, correlates into strong metals too.
That could line up. That could,
So
yeah.
the charts are kind of, giving us, when you look at both of them, they're kind of giving us signals there.
So
Same signal.
yeah, so through that lens, I would really watch 99.50. If that goes,
Mm-hmm.
I think we're back in the mix here and possibly at 97, but at least towards the end of the month here, September. So we could be down into I'm just looking at the time, if we double that time, we're into early September, right? We could be down for a week or two if we take out 99.50.
Mm-hmm.
So watch that like a hawk. That's the level to watch. And above that, well, we have overhead 100.5 is resistance. And so the dollar's starting to look weak and it's going to be weak below 99.50. So watch that closely. And I think that's probably the first time you've heard me say dollar and weak in the same
Yeah,
sentence.
it's been a while.
It's been a while, but well, this is not the kind of pattern you see in a breakaway sort of a bull market, right?
No,
So,
no.
and
I mean,
yeah,
if you look at it sideways since, year and a half ago.
yeah, and we're, it definitely clamped really well. So now we're back
Hmm.
in the mix, and I can't see why we can't just go back towards
To the
97.
bottom of the range.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
exactly.
Hmm.
All right, so and euro was kind of the clue, right? This 1350, that it held really well, and that was sort of the first clue. And then 1500 held. We're really kind of well above that. And you can see how we're starting to make higher lows.
Hmm.
So euro's looking a little bullish because of that setup. Yeah, it's a little expanding, but if this trend line holds, we're going to go higher and test this 1642. And so that's what's in the mix. So once we get there, we'll deal with it. If it takes there next couple of weeks to get there, okay, fine. Um, but whatever the case may be, it looks more bullish than bearish at this point for a number of reasons. And that's probably the first time you heard me say euro and bullish
Hmm.
in a long
Long
time.
time.
So, all right, now let's take a look at the weeklies. Well, let me finish Bitcoin, get the currencies out of the way. And so Bitcoin, I cleaned up the chart a little bit, and last, when I added this circle, it was I think last weekend or Monday after the show, and I'm like, Bitcoin chart's getting a little filled up. I wanted to clean it up a bit. And I added the chart and I thought, if we hold the curve, we ought to, that'll be sort of the primer to get moving. And we didn't. So we started dropping. I have two couple of Gann angles here. We dropped through the first one, we dropped through the second one. So, Bitcoin's sort of just giving it up. And so I would say Bitcoin's an interesting place. Week below 63,820. Okay. Week below 63,820. It's going to be real trouble if we take out that ledge, which is 62, let's say 62,122. I'll clean that up later when I have time. But those are the two levels to watch. 63,820 to the upside. If we can clear that, great. If we're not, we can definitely expect it to get to 62,122. If we get below that, then we could definitely be going back down towards 58,000 where we're going to retest those lows. That's all I got for Bitcoin. Anything you want to add there, Ben?
No, I think the levels are key
Yeah.
that you've identified. Let's watch those.
Yep. All right, let's take a look at the dollar, weekly dollar. Weekly dollar. Well, just to reflect for a second, if we were really going gung ho like this ABC was going to finish up, we should have been here 1 or 2 days and we should have gone up
Hmm.
higher. We didn't. We,
Hmm.
we dropped hard right into the middle of it. And that kind of a drop, um, if that was the end of it, we should have reversed this week, and we didn't. We held a little bit. This is very suspicious to me. So I would, and it's funny if you draw a trend line connecting these two lows, we're resting on that for 2 weeks now. So if that goes, we're going to go. At
Hmm.
least that's 98. So watch for a weak dollar if if we uh, take out these lows. If we hold that and start moving higher, okay, fine. That's our normal stance is that, but we're looking for some kind of a correction going into, looking at the cycle, probably end of the month. And that gives the euro plenty of time to go back up and test this 1654 level, which is a 50% level. It's a major level, so let's see if we can do it. And you can see, even the euro came down and really scraped off the bottom side of that, the floor of that sort of the bracket, and spent about over a month there. So now we're getting towards the middle of the bracket. Fine, 1654. That's a potential upside. If last week's low goes, then obviously we have a reversal, and we're back to the old plan. How has that been? Is that
Good.
clear
Very
enough, right?
good.
To the point?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, good. Let me put it back to you. Let's take a look at the NASDAQ, the longer term levels and squares and everything else. Well, guess who cleared 30,000, right?
It's big.
Mm-hmm.
It's really big, and I'll show you on multiple charts why, these levels that we're above now are really important and sort of, strengthen the bull case here. So 30,048 was what we were talking about. That's 50% of the square. You can
Right.
see, we spent time here, we spent time here, we spent all this time here, we tested it once, and now we're above it. And we actually cleared it on Friday. So that's your key level this week. Watch 30,048. Above it, we're going to attack the all-time highs. Below it, we have a lower high in place, and we could see, waterfall type declines. But it's leaning bullish right now, and I'll show you why. Here's a calendar day. Remember on the way down, we had this 45 Barry that we were
Yep.
watching and saying, it's kind of guiding it lower. We got the opposite now.
Mm-hmm.
We've gotten on top of this 45, and now we're riding it higher. So here 30,049 is the key level. Same, virtually the same 1 point off the other one. So it's the same level
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
sitting on top. Just looks like we're going for this full square and all-time highs. And holding the 45, supports it, supports that. Here's the, looking at the weekly, here's a reason why, again, I'm leaning more bullish here. This full square, 180 up from the COVID lows. This is 29,779. We closed above it, meaning we could clear it this coming week. And if we clear it, the pathway's there for all-time highs. It's not that far to go. And the pressure will be up and to the upside. So let's watch that level and then take a look at the monthly. We got a similar story. We've been spending a lot of time below this month, and now we're above 29,662. So heading into September, if we sit on top here, we can clearly go because this is 1, 2, 3, 4 months where we've been crisscrossing it. So all in all, the bulls in the Qs did what they needed to do this week and are looking pretty bullish as long as we can stay above this 30,048. So looking at the longer term stuff, anything change your mind on NQs?
Well, I mean, we're not making new highs. So I think next week's going to be sort of defining all over again.
Mhm.
Let's see what happens here. If we can hold these lines that you're showing, then fine, Otherwise, we might have traction to the other side. So,
Yep. We know the levels. That's the
yep.
key. We know the levels to watch. On the commodities, we'll jump in real quickly. We got a lot to cover. Let's go to the grains first, where we had a major crop report and a good week. So here's wheat. We completed, I don't know if you can see it, but we completed this ABCD down and
Yeah,
reversed
I can see it.
strongly. Yeah, we
Hmm.
reversed nicely off of it. We've cleared the 50% of the square that we were battling on for about a week and a half here. We're now above it, testing the 5/8 line at the high on Friday, but it looks like we're going to take out these highs here. So this week, watch 678 and 714 to the upside, 641 to the downside on the daily. We want to stay above that. Staying above that, turns the pressure higher, and the next leg should start higher here. Let's look at the weekly. We're banging our head on the ceiling here at 681. So this coming week, let's watch 681. Most likely, unless we gap on Sunday night, we're gonna crisscross it this week, which is okay. That's the first step. We want to clear that, sit on top of 681 because you see we failed a couple times here recently. We can sit on top of that, we really know the weekly next leg is up and going, and momentum will kick in. Give you a shot of the long term with the monthly. There's your monthly. We're at the high of the month so far. 685 is the next important level. That's a quarter square. We want to get on top of that. And then it's 730 and then 775. But as you can see, we cleared last month. We're clearing again this month, even though we're inside. Let's see if we can make a higher high this month. That would be very positive. Anything you want to add on wheat? I know it's looking very, very bullish.
Yeah, I think I think all these commodities are going up. Wheat looks good. I mean, these are all the different places to add. And yeah, stay bullish
Yep,
above the levels, right?
that's right. All right, let's go to the next one. No, sorry, that's gold. I don't want to see gold. Where's my here we go. Corn. So corn was correcting. We were stuck below this 446. We got the crop report, and now we're sitting on top of it and stretching higher. So 446 to the downside is what you want to watch. On the upside, the next key one is the quarter square at 464. But it looks based upon where we closed the week and the price action during the week that corn is the next leg in corn is starting. And you could see we could catch like there could be a one, a little two, could be the fast wave here. And this is the way they kick off, right? Let's look at the weekly. And the weekly is important from this standpoint that I want to point out. We have an outside reversal bar, Barry, a weekly outside reversal bar. So after 2 weeks down, we made a lower low last week, closed at the high, which was above the high of the previous week. On a weekly basis in commodities, that is a big sign that we're kicking off. Weekly momentum should come in here. 464 next week is the next level we want to get on top of. The pressure now, since we held this full square and are reversing, is to the half square, which is 517. Let's look at the monthly. The monthly, we're banging our head on the ceiling here at 463, but you can see why this level is important. Let's see how we do this coming week, but we want to get above it, and then we can set up for getting a September bar on top and clearing. And when corn clears this level, just look back and see what happens.
Yep.
Big things to the upside
At
happen.
least an
So
ABCD is in store, right?
yeah, yeah. I mean it just looks good. Anything you want to add on corn?
No, no, we could just got to add more corn, I guess.
Yeah, just have more of it.
Mhm.
All right, let's go to the next one, and that's beans. So on beans, Same thing. We got the crop report. Not as big a reaction as we saw in wheat or corn, but still we got the reversal higher. Got some follow through on Friday. 1170 is the key here. We closed above that, and we got another higher low, which is another nice thing. So uh, beans look good. They're the laggard, but they're still a bullish chart. 1170 is the key here on a daily basis. Let's look at the weekly. Guess what we got here, Barry? Outside reversal bar.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
we printed a lower low on the week and closed at the right near the high above the previous week's high. Outside reversal. Always pay attention to those on a weekly basis, especially in commodities. And we closed over 1171. So this week, let's see if we can sit on top of 1171. That'll push us up towards the recent highs, at 1200 and towards the full square here at 1283. But the outside reversal is a big clue that the correction is over and we should be moving higher. Let's look at the monthly. There's your monthly. The monthly we're inside last month's bar, which was a reversal up. We're holding this steep trend line kind of nicely. It's been hit many, many times, so it's pretty important. 1200 is the next level, and then 50% of the square at 1275 is really important. And that would be the next target up after 1200. Anything you want to add on beans?
No, no, you covered everything well. I think, I mean, the entire grain complex is you're covering pretty well. This is what we need to know.
And that crop report gave us sort of the kick in the tail
Hmm.
to get things moving again. And
That's how he sneaks up.
yep, it did its job. All right, let's go check the softs. We've been talking about the softs. Let's look at the softs here. Here's sugar. Sugar we were watching in this channel, right, for a long time. We got the break last week. Look at how strongly we pushed up on the follow through once we broke out of this sideways that we were in for 4 or 5 months. Pushed all the way up to 50% of the square, even when an extra eighth. Your eighth rule came in perfectly there, Barry, where we pushed up to the 5/8, and then now it looks like we're entering some sort of consolidation,
Hmm.
before the next move up. The interesting thing is a lot of times with these commodities, the first move the first fast move into the consolidation is like a halfway point, meaning we've got another like three-quarters of a square up from here, which would put us, up near 20, 1920 for a target. But this looks good. I posted during the week, hey, looks like this leg is done. Let's see how the correction plays out. If it keeps doing this, it's going to be more in time than price, which is very bullish. But everything about sugar looks fine right now. Let's look at the weekly. So on a weekly basis, on a pullback, we want to see us hold above 16. Not only is that 50% of the square, but it's structural support. So we came up to the three-quarters of the square. Let's see what the correction does, how many weeks it is, how much in price it pulls back. But you can see the pressure is towards 1827, which is 50%, the full square here, and areas where we had uh, lows previously. So it's an important spot, but that's where we're heading next. Uh, Everything looks good. And let's take a look at the monthly. There's your monthly. So now we know 1599, 1600 from the daily 1610. Those are all important spots to watch on pullbacks. If we hold above those, there's your $20 sugar, right? Pushing up to the full square, 1975.
Yep, yep.
Anything you want to add here on sugar? Like you said, when they're moving, there's not a lot to say. You're just looking to see, where you can get in again or take profits, and it's trade management.
Yeah, and if nothing else, the idea that these things are starting to break to the upside and the
That's right.
sideways seems to be over, you know. So
Yep. And you could see how long we were in. It was sort of, we had this high, it came down strong, and then just started drifting. and
Hmm.
drifted.
Hmm.
And then we found the clues. We got the square, squared out, held the half square, and that's why we got involved. And now they're moving. So you just trade it to the upside when the setups are there. All right, let's go to the next one. Our old friend Cotton.
Hmm.
So we tapped the full square here at 85, had a 1 day pullback and immediately reversed. So let's watch 85 this week. If we get above 85, we're going to press these highs. And then potentially, the next leg is going to start. I think we saw it, right? We saw the pullback, good test of structural support, right?
Hmm.
And had a reversal Friday. We just got to clear this full square. And we clear that and we go. Then it's $90 plus cotton.
Jeez.
Yep. Let's look at the weekly. Not too key of a level, is it?
Well, just like
84.
just like no different from the indices, right? We break
Yeah,
that, we go.
absolutely. We're right on it. 84.53. We closed at 84.80. I mean, just look left here. See how important this is?
Hmm.
It's where things on the way up go vertical and on the way down where, it tries to hold. And if it doesn't, then you push down more. So it's almost a balance point, right? Between the lows, which is 60, and the 120 full square here, right?
Yeah,
Is this
yeah.
85 level.
Mhm.
So we're there, and it's potential for orbit here if we can clear and sit on top. Let's look at the monthly, get an even bigger perspective. Here you're talking about roughly 89, but you can see why it's pretty critical. Let's see if we can get up there and test it. Sit on top of that monthly, and then we're setting up for spikes. All in all, cotton looks bullish. You got the numbers, 85 on the daily basis.
I mean, all these things are soft grains. Everything's starting to move.
Yep, yep, it really is. After being in the doldrums for a while, let's go to the next one. Cocoa. You and I were talking about this one this week, Barry, right? We
Yep.
caught the low here, traded these legs up, and we said, okay, man, we're winding up again. We're winding up again for the next one. Listen, as long as we're winding up and spending most of the time above 5,700, the odds favor the bullish resolution is higher.
Hmm.
And we break out of here, you're talking, 7,000 cocoa, maybe even 7,800, 8,000. So we're watching this triangle on a daily basis for clues to the break here, because when the break goes, it goes. I mean, you see how this thing runs when it runs, both up and
And what a
down.
great low that was.
Yep.
Hmm.
And when it runs, it runs.
Yeah.
Here's your weekly. I drew the triangle in there. We basically went from a bigger triangle to a smaller triangle. But again, look at where we're rotating around this 57.31. As long as we stay above that, you know, there's your 7,000 and there's your 8,000. If we get going, when it goes, it goes. And lastly, the monthly. On the monthly, it's 5,900. That's the full square here. We want to see us, get a close above there, then we clear that. And then there's your 7 and 8,000 cocoa. I mean, it could all be doing this in an overall bigger bearish pattern, right? We could make this run up to 8, 9, 10,000, be printing a lower high and then roll over again.
Hmm.
But we're still looking to trade this bullish leg because I mean, look at these moves, from less than 3,000 to 6,500. Massive moves.
Yeah.
Anything you want to add on cocoa?
Nope. I got my supply of chocolate, so we're good.
Yeah, that's right. Don't sell it yet. We could sell it out at 7 or 8,000.
I'm eating the supply.
There you go. That's good. I was also going to mention gold and silver. Barry covered them. Just know that they're all looking. Both of them are looking bullish. It looks like we're trying to put in higher lows on these pullbacks, and then we can play the next one to the next move to the upside. All in all, the commodities are bullish. Money's coming in. Barry covered crude. Nat gas is trying to put in a bottom, so maybe it and crude are going to pop up on the radar in the next week or so. We'll be watching those, and if they do, if they show signs of life, we'll highlight them on the show. So all in all, The action is going to be strong. We're not in the dog days of summer. We are calendar wise, but I don't think activity wise with the cycles that have come in, the price action, breaking out the new highs. The last 2 weeks of August, is going to be exciting both in commodities and the stock indices. So I'm excited. I'm going to rest up myself and make sure I'm ready to go. With these softs on the East Coast, you got to get up at like 4 a.m. to catch the open. So it's
Yeah, that's the only thing.
but it's worth it. The
Yeah,
moves are worth it. You make sure your position's good, or you get your position in place, and then you can go back to bed for a little while. But resting up is key. And Barry and I joke about that because he'll call me at 9 o'clock at night, and I don't answer the phone because I'm already in bed.
exactly.
But that's a reality. When they're moving, we have to make ourselves available, and
That's
because
right.
you've seen in these things, they can go sideways for months and years, and when they're moving, you got to be available. So.
Absolutely.
Anyway, have a great weekend, everybody. Barry, great job on nailing those levels. Let's see if the Bulls or Bears are going to win in those indices, and we know the levels where to make the assessment. So take care, everybody, and have a great week.
All right. Good job, Ben. And you guys have a great week. Thanks for the likes and all the support. And follow us on X and Substack if you can. Have a great week and a great weekend. Talk to
And
you
we'll
later.
see y'all later. Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.